In 1915, a passenger ocean liner cuts across an Atlantic that has become a war zone, and still it pushes forward, fast, massive, confident. Almost no one on board can imagine that, beneath the surface, a silent calculation is already in motion. Within minutes, a chain of explosions will shatter every rule of modern ship safety. Before we break down how it happened minute by minute, hit like and subscribe to follow the full reconstruction of this sinking. Inside the warm lounges, the crossing feels ordinary. China clinks, footsteps keep time, and the turbines hum in the distance. Built for speed, the ship holds a strong pace, carving a long wake across the Atlantic. Some passengers track the war, but many trust that a civilian liner will pass untouched. The crew, however, tightens the routine, hatches, lifeboats, and safety checks. Down in the engine spaces, the work is non-stop and scorching, powering the comfort above. This normal can break in minutes. Below deck, life runs in layers, comfort above, hard labor below. On the sheltered promenade, families walk to escape the wind and pretend the world is still normal. In the salons, stewards keep everything polished, like the war is happening in another ocean. But every vibration of the hull is a reminder. This ship survives on rhythm and discipline. Speed feels like an advantage, but it also steals reaction time when something appears on the horizon and someone is watching that horizon a little too closely. Between folded newspapers and discreet charts, the war comes aboard without needing an announcement. Some passengers notice the small changes: dimmer lights, tighter corridors, more frequent checks. On the bridge, every update turns into route math and watchkeeping discipline. In the radio room, short signals arrive and vanish, like the ocean has been marked with invisible lines. The crew treats every procedure like routine, but the reason is obvious. This isn't just a voyage, it's a crossing under threat. Hour by hour, the mood shifts in tiny details. More lookouts, more checks, fewer distractions on deck. On the bridge, a slight course correction becomes normal, like the ship is avoiding something no one can see. Passengers begin testing life vests and exit routes, still calling it precaution. The crew readies boats and lines with trained hands. No visible rush. Below, the turbines stay steady, but any adjustment has to be quick and precise. The ocean looks the same, and that's what makes the threat so hard to measure. Below the waterline, the voyage is noise, heat, and mechanical routine. Boilers demand constant feeding, and any pressure swing must be corrected immediately. Bilge pumps and valves work to keep the ship dry inside, even as the Atlantic pounds the hull. In wartime, watertight doors and checks stop being formality and become priority. A fast aligner depends on balance, power, stability, discipline. If water gets in where it shouldn't, the clock starts running. A short message can change an entire crossing. On the bridge, any warning becomes an instant adjustment, course, speed, watch. In the radio room, signals arrive in fragments and demand repeats to confirm what was heard. Everything looks the same on the surface, but priorities shift. Lifeboats, vests, and watertight doors are checked like time just got shorter. On deck, the horizon looks empty, and that's exactly why no one relaxes. At sea, danger rarely gives you a heads up. Inside a submarine, the ocean becomes numbers, sounds, and discipline. The crew works in near silence, moving between gauges, valves, and the periscope. Every depth change alters what can be seen and what can be heard. Outside, a fast ocean liner crosses the water like nothing could touch it. In here, that same silhouette is treated as a target, distance and angle recalculated again and again. The strike hasn't happened yet, but the setup is already underway. The sea changes texture as the coast draws nearer, and it tricks the mind. It feels like the worst must be behind them. On deck, some search for land on the horizon and breathe easier. On the bridge, it's the opposite. Watch is reinforced, tiny corrections, constant attention to the surface. In the submarine, this moment is opportunity, range closes, angles improve, and every sound becomes a clue. Two worlds run in parallel, separated by a few meters of water, and the time to decide is shrinking. Lusitania holds high speed, and that creates a dangerous illusion of control. On deck, the horizon looks clean, but the lookouts keep rigid scan sectors, repeating the same search arc. On the bridge, small course changes avoid a predictable track without drawing attention from passengers. Smoke rises from Cunard's 4 funnels, and the long wake behind confirms the steady pace. In the submarine, that same run becomes pure math: distance, angle, time to intercept. The margin for error tightens, and the preparation continues with no warning on the surface. The coast feels closer, and many passengers move around again like the dangerous part is already over. Still, the bridge keeps reinforced watch and small zigzags to avoid a repeating pattern. On deck, families lean into the wind between Cunard's funnels and that long wake that gives away the constant speed. The crew checks boats and lines like routine maintenance, but the urgency is in their hands. In the submarine, the target grows in the periscope and the meeting point is recalculated every minute. If you want to see how these minutes become 18, hit like and subscribe to follow the reconstruction. The ship keeps moving fast, and most passengers take their cues from what they can see: sea, wind, and the comfort of nearby land. On the bridge, the reading is different. An empty horizon demands even tighter discipline. Small course changes try to break any predictability. Below the surface, a submarine positions with patience, adjusting depth and angle to cross the liner's path. The distance collapses and the decision window becomes minutes. The setup enters its final phase. Inside the submarine, observation turns into command. Depth steady, course locked, tube flooded and ready. With the liner crossing the aim line, the shot is calculated to meet the hull without any surface warning. When the torpedo leaves the tube, it runs on gyroscopic guidance and speed, slicing the water with a trail of bubbles. On Lusitania's deck, passengers still walk through spray and smoke, trusting the coast is close. The gap closes too fast for any wide maneuver. From here on, everything depends on seconds. The bubble trail races beneath the hull, invisible to anyone facing the wind on deck. On the bridge, the sector scan continues and a minimal correction is logged, but there's no clear sign on the surface. Passengers keep walking, holding hats and children, hearing only engines and sea. Underwater, the torpedo holds a steady line, guided by its gyro, closing the final meters. The impact doesn't arrive as an image. It arrives as a blunt udar that travels through steel. In seconds, steam, water, and list begin tearing apart the routine. The first shock is followed by seconds of confusion. The ship shudders, and for some, the deck feels like it drops under their feet. The list increases fast and changes the geometry of everything. Walking becomes work, gripping a rail becomes instinct. Passengers try to regroup while the crew rushes to clear boats and open routes, but the rolling and heel sabotage every motion. Below, water and steam fight for space in narrow corridors, and power starts failing in different places at once. In the middle of that technical chaos, a second internal blast is felt like a heavy thud, widening the damage and accelerating the loss of stability. From here on, every minute is worth more than any plan. The problem now isn't just getting off the ship, it's getting off a deck that changes angle every minute. The list makes lifeboats swing crooked. lines run too fast, and people lose footing at the worst possible moment. Crew members try to enforce order and spacing, but the crowd compresses where passage still exists. Passengers carry what they can, then drop everything to hold children and rails. On the bridge, what looked like a controllable emergency becomes a countdown. With water taking compartments, every attempt has to work the first time. Time is no longer Lusitania's friend. With the ship tilting toward a more dangerous angle, evacuation becomes a game of patience and luck against all odds. Boats that would normally lower smoothly are now released in rough, disordered bursts, while crew members try to calm terrified passengers. The list ruins leverage, and the boats whip violently before they hit the water. For many, each second drags. Fear rises, and so does the sense that the sea is right there, waiting to swallow what's left of the ship's pride. The list starts controlling everything. The low side becomes a wall, the high side becomes a packed corridor. Boats on one side become unusable, and every attempt to lower one risks slamming into the hull or flipping outright. Passengers change plans mid-step. Bags get abandoned, directions reverse. People search only for height and something to hold. Water pushes into interior spaces and forces improvised routes upward. Smoke still pours from Cunard's 4 funnels, but the ship's sound changes. More groan, less engine. The sinking is now a sequence, not a question. The ship is no longer sailing, it is simply going down, with the low side turning into a wall and the high side turning into an unstable ramp. On the surface, survivors instinctively pull away from the hull as suction grows with the descending mass. Cunard's 4 funnels remain visible for moments, each one closer to the waterline, until they vanish behind spray and turbulence. The water closes over the space where the ship stood, and debris begins to spin in the same spot. The sound shifts from engines to water and tearing metal. What remains is cold, waves, and floating wood. With the ship gone from sight, the danger becomes the environment. Cold, waves, exhaustion. Cork life vests keep people afloat, but the water drains strength minute by minute. Lifeboats that made it clear begin edging toward the wreckage, choosing who they can pull in without capsizing. With no landmarks on the horizon, survivors navigate by screams, raised arms, and planks of wood. Priorities change fast. Gather, stabilize, move away from the lingering whirl. Rescue hasn't arrived yet, and every approach has to be careful. Hours later, the sea keeps demanding energy almost no one has left. Wooden boats move in short runs because any long maneuver in Atlantic chop risks flipping. People in the water try to keep their hands out of the cold and save strength for the next pull. Survivors begin clustering by instinct, larger wreckage, ropes, anyone who can row. Far off, a low, intermittent sound cuts through the wind, but there's still no rescue in sight. The goal is brutally simple: keep people alive until someone arrives. As the debris field spreads, any mark on the horizon becomes a reference point. Between waves and haze, a dark speck and a thin line of distant smoke suggest someone heard or saw something. In the boats, the priority becomes grouping survivors and staying visible, without wasting strength. Anyone still in the water must be pulled quickly because coordination drops fast in the cold. Communication becomes gesture only. Arms, cloth, the direction of a stare. Rescue is still far, but for the first time, there's a target to move toward. The silhouette grows and stops being a guess. It's a period steam vessel, following the smoke plume and the signals on the water. In the debris field, wooden boats fight to hold position without drifting too far from people in the water. Those still floating conserve motion and wait for the moment a rope actually reaches them. From the steamer, the approach is slow, to avoid striking wreckage and to avoid swamping smaller boats in the waves. When the first line is thrown, rescue becomes physical, repetitive work. The mission shifts from find to pull from the sea. Now rescue becomes a strength routine. Approach without collision, throw a line, haul, steady the boat, repeat. The steamer holds back from the wreckage while smaller craft go where the larger hull cannot. In the water, survivors in cork vests alternate between signaling and stillness, trying not to bleed heat away. In the boats, those pulled out get a blanket, a sip of water, and a place low in the hull, out of the wind. Every new person changes balance and forces weight to be redistributed immediately. The goal is simple: get people out before the cold wins. Rescue begins turning chaos into a system. Small boat brings them in, deck receives them, blanket covers them, and someone rows back out. On the steamer, every arrival is treated as weight and warmth. Lift from the rail, seat them center, cover them, keep them awake. Crew avoid stopping too close to debris because one wrong drift can crush a lifeboat or roll a smaller craft. In the boats, order becomes gesture and priority. First, the people still in the water, then those already on wood or in vests. Slowly, the sinking point slips behind them, and the work becomes controlled repetition. On the steamer's deck, rescue becomes counting and basic care. Warm them, seat them, cover them, keep them conscious. The crew reorganizes space to prevent falls and to shield the most exhausted from the wind. Wooden boats are recovered gradually because leaving them loose near the hull is an immediate hazard. With the sea still rough, the ship holds low speed and alters course to exit the debris field. Behind them, there is no ship anymore, only foam, planks, and an oil smear. The rest of the crossing is quiet survival. When the coast finally comes into view, there's no full relief. Only the immediate end of the sea's threat. On deck, survivors are counted, covered, and kept together until the harbor approach. At arrival, rescue becomes simple triage. Warm them, seat them, move those who can't walk, record what may still serve as proof. Lusitania is on the bottom now, but the consequences stay on the surface. Arguments over war at sea, neutrality, and civilian safety. Public and diplomatic reaction grows in the weeks that follow and changes the tone of the conflict. What began with a torpedo ends as a political turning point.